Welcome to Benevolent Business, the podcast exploring how to build a business to positively impact society, the environment, employees, and much more. Discussing with business leaders and founders to see what drove them in this direction, their unique experiences, and what we can all learn from their journey. Brought to you by your host, Hayden Bloomfield, and producer, David Proud.
That's me.
This week, we're joined by Becky Hodges, owner and founder of Didi and Bud. But first, before we kick off, let's have a little chat, Dave and I, about Benevolent Business, what it all is, and where we got our inspiration from.
So Hayden, you originally came to me because you needed someone to help produce the podcast, and it's something that maybe I've been looking at for a couple of weeks now, but you were the one that had the idea in the first place. So why did you want to start a podcast about benevolent businesses in particular?
So the journey in coming up with Benevolent Business, I had for probably a year and a half, 2 years, I wanted to host a podcast, and it was trying to think of what content I wanted to talk about and what I wanted the conversation to be. I'd started listening to podcasts and was really inspired by them in terms of running my own business and finding ideas and overcoming different challenges. I was doing a lot in terms of listening to podcasts such as Secret Leaders was the first podcast I ever listened to, and went on to others. But in my own business, I just met with so many different business owners, and as I sort of grew and developed, I just got to know so many more different people through like different networks and such. And the more conversations I had, the more I was just infatuated with business and understanding and hearing these different journeys that people have been on, and hearing some of the like harsh challenges that you have to overcome in order to grow a successful business. And it's, as I sort of learned more and more about other business owner stories, I was just focusing more on my own dreams and what I'd wanted to achieve. And that was leading me down a route of looking at really making an impact and thinking of like, I've got a very creative mindset that my mind is focused on creative ideas and thinking wild and just coming up with the most ridiculous goals. And for me, all the little analytical things and like the numbers and the digits, it's I still obviously I do it, but it's just less interesting to me. And to me, in building a business, it was about having a positive impact. And the more I learned about that and sort of learned about what a B Corporation is, studied into that and how they came about, what a B Corporation is, and I just was so overwhelmed by all these different businesses that are doing so much to help the planet, to help different ecosystems, to help sustainability around the world, and to help different individuals, whether that's the employees, suppliers, farmers, growers, all these different people. And I wanted to make sure that's what my business did. And so as part of growing that business, what better way to just talk to as many different people that have achieved that. And then from there, I thought, well, two and two together, I want to have all these conversations and learn as much as I can about building a benevolent business. And I want to have a podcast one day and host one. So there we go. And then it was, I know how to talk, I can do that. But how to produce a podcast, no idea. So then it was a case of reaching out to so many different people. And that went on for probably about 6 months. And here we are, Dave, you and I.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a while to get going. By the time we're recording this bit, how many interviews have we done? 5?
5,
now?
Yeah.
We've got 2 getting ready to booked in. And it's been from, bigger companies with a massive turnover to just small little one-man bands. So do you have any goals of the types of people that you want to get on the podcast? Is there a dream guest that you want to get on?
Oh yeah, big time. Like the ideal conversations. Oh, how long you got? I got a long list. I suppose I'll just do top 2 people that I'd love to get on that are huge inspirations for me. Actually, no, I'll do top 3. Top 3. So top 3 is from original inspiration of why this podcast came about. So as I mentioned, I started listening to Secret Leaders was the first podcast, and the host of that, Dan Murray Serta, he also has his own company, Heights. So that would be a huge honour to have him on as a guest and talk about his own business, his own journey there. Number 2, Stephen Barlett, the founder of Social Chain, who's now moved on from Social Chain, but just his whole business journey has been hugely benevolent in terms of the impact he's had on the industry, the impact he's had on his employees. Just when you dive into the content he's producing in the company and hear from all the people involved, it's just such a positive impact it's had on so many people, and the overall happiness. So Social Chain employs a happiness person that is in charge of happiness, which is just extraordinary. To get to the point where your business can employ someone just to keep people happy is Unbelievable. And then third, Joe Wicks. I just think he is possibly I've never met him, but from everything I've seen of him, he's just the nicest human person, nicest human on this planet. He's just so pleasant and just wants to help so many people. And to sit down and hear about that and really get into the details. Like, I've listened to a lot of his content, and he's got his own podcast. He's been on many different podcasts. So to sort of ask my own questions and get my own understanding and have that conversation will just be a dream come true.
Yeah, I mean, my top one, I would say, is probably Richard Branson. He's one of the biggest business owners in the world, and I've followed him for quite a long time as well. Read his books and things like that, and hearing about his background. But what he does through Virgin, and the way they try and be environmentally conscious and give back to, even the way they treat their staff. I remember a few years ago they brought in a scheme where employees could just take time off whenever they wanted, and they could have as much time off as they wanted in the year. So the idea was, as long as they're doing their job, the work's getting done, and it's productive.
Unlimited holiday.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter when people take holiday, as long as that job's getting done. And by doing that, the person, when they're at work, they're going to be a lot more happy and a lot more productive and a lot better at their job, to be honest.
It's funny you say that, because that's, when I'm talking of my top three, Stephen Barlett, the company he founded, Social Chain, exactly the same thing. So they have unlimited holiday. I don't know if that's for every single employee, but I presume it is. But yeah, they have unlimited holiday, so you can. And that's something I'd love to have the conversation about, is people that have companies with unlimited holiday for their staff does it work? How does it work, and why does it work?
I wonder whether they find people take more or less holiday than they would normally be given in a year.
That'd be really interesting. And I think you've really got to have a strong culture. You've got to have a team of people that love what they do and are driven to go to work every day. Because otherwise, if you haven't got a great culture and you give everybody unlimited holiday, they probably wouldn't go to work.
No.
So Richard Branson, top one. Who would be your top three? So Richard Branson.
So the other two, I'd say, one that's similar to yours with Joe Wicks, probably Jamie Oliver, and all the work he does around healthy eating. And a few years ago, when he was trying to sort out kids' schools meals as well, because obviously nutrition is a massive thing, especially when you're growing up. If you don't have the right nutrition, it's hard to pay attention in school and learn, and that's where a lot of the behavioural problems come from. If you're just shoving them full of sugar, you're going to have all this energy, and that energy needs to go somewhere. So that'd be a really good one. And I would say the other one probably be Russell Brand. Again, he's a divisive figure. He's someone that I've followed for a long time. He has a lot of different theories, but he's a very open-minded person. And I do agree with quite a lot of his outlooks, and I'd like to ask him more about it and probe a little bit deeper and see how you could take his views and put them into a business rather than just like a personality sort of thing. Yeah,
definitely. I agree with you there. Like Russell Brand, I've been a big fan of Russell Brand. I've read a lot of his books, and they're extremely interesting. Very, very highly intellectual. Like I had to have the dictionary with me as I was reading, but it was good. I learned a lot, and I think that would be an extraordinary conversation to have, especially because it's not someone that's renowned for business. It's just a personality, and he's obviously been involved in a lot of different things and very entrepreneurial in the sense that he's made his money in different ways. But as well, one of the biggest things in that conversation, I think, would be the backgrounds. When you look at, so like the top threes that we've both mentioned, and like the guests we've had, the backgrounds are very different to Russell Brand. His background obviously is quite extreme in the sense that being a heavy drug user, having all these different substance abuse issues. So to hear someone from that journey that's transitioned and found this different lifestyle, that would be an extremely interesting conversation. And as well with Jamie Oliver, definitely. He's received a lot of credit for what he did achieve, but I don't think enough credit is there for seriously what Jamie Oliver achieved transforming school meals. Because throughout that entire, I remember the series on TV, and I was in primary school. So big question, turkey Twizzlers. Was you a fan or did you not like them?
I don't think I ever had them, to be honest.
Oh, I
never really had school meals. I was a packed lunch guy.
Right. I was a packed lunch, but I remember the odd day I would have a school meal, and I used to have a mate that would buy me stuff at school. His parents would give him a load of money, so then I often got like fizzy drinks and all sorts. But when I think back to primary school, it was bottles of fizz, cakes, chips, beans, everything was brown. Just everything brown. And turkey twizzlers were just, I don't even know what they were. They weren't turkey, but yeah, when they were gone, I was quite relieved to see what the impact he was having and the changes, because I always liked the idea of eating healthy from like a very young age. Obviously, a lot of people weren't happy about that, but I thought it was a brilliant thing.
You've just triggered something in me of someone else I'd love to speak to, which is Damien Aspinall, who runs Aspinall Foundation, and I've done some work with them in the past. So they run Port Lympne and Howletts in Kent, the two wildlife parks. And what animals is my thing. I do as much as I can for animal charities. And what's so good about these two is, first of all, don't call them a zoo, because they're not a zoo. A zoo's got a very bad connotations to it.
I learned that when we discussed this. I learned that.
Small cages, concrete floors. No, it's that they want to emulate the wildlife as much as possible with big, wide open spaces and enrichment for the animals and things like that. But more importantly, they want to try and put themselves out of business. So their goal is to send these animals back to the wild so that they don't have to exist in the future. And I think...
interesting business model.
Yeah.
Imagine that setting up and going, right, our dream here is to go bust. We must go bust.
Yeah. But then they're making a better world if they do that. So, yeah.
That is truly a inspirational dream there to actually... It's so selfless in that goal to actually build this successful business, and to a point where it's so successful it goes bust. Yeah. Where you talk about, so the Aspinall Foundation and having Damon on as a guest, I love the fact that we're going into, with the different, 3 or 4 that we've mentioned, you're going into really different categories, and I love the idea that over the course of different series we explore different sectors within business. So in particular going into like wildlife, for example, talking to different businesses that really are centered around nature and wildlife, animals, different, whether they're charities or businesses, however they're structured, but doing a lot to help nature and wildlife, whether it's repopulating or general well-being and health. But also then in terms of like nutrition, where you talk there about Jamie Oliver and nutrition, talking about going into different companies where it's all around the nutrition and building these products to help people nutritionally. So like on the subject of that, you've got like Huel, you've got Grenades, like they're producing foods that are all around about accepting the fact that a lot of us don't have time to eat and we're very rushed, but it's a way of trying to get as much nutrition crammed into something small, on the go and quick. And it'd be really interesting to have different conversations around there. And then same thing with other we've talked in the first series about different employers that specialise in employee health. So going into companies and helping them with their own employees. So I think it'd just be so incredible to go across the podcast and look at these really different characters and different categories and different industries to see how they're all benevolent in their own different way.
Well, I think that's one of the great things about the word benevolent. It can mean so many different things. Like even just in our intro, we talk about, giving back to the community, giving back to your staff, and looking after the environment. But there's much more than that. There can be classed as a benevolent business. It's just a business that's looking out for more than just its own bottom line, its own profits.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what my thought process was, what my inspiration was with the podcast and my own business, was about talking to business owners and leaders that it's not just about the P&L report, it's not just about cash flow and seeing how much money you can get in the bank and how much tax you can not pay or whatever it is. It's about how much impact you can have with your business and use that asset, use that as a tool, a driving force to make a change, a positive one, and to really alter the course of humanity and the arguably quite destructive pathway we've been on, especially with the climate, in terms of how climate change is affected. So yeah, those conversations to have will be extraordinary. So there you go, you've heard a little bit about Dave and I's inspirations and where we'd really like to drive this podcast towards, and also some of the guests that hopefully one day we might be able to have on. So if any of you guys know of any of the names we've mentioned there, then please do get them in touch with us.
Or if you know someone that sounds like those types of people, a business that is giving a little bit back to their community and the environment, put them in touch with us. And how can they do that, Hayden?
They can do that. You can email me personally at Hayden, Hayden, .Bloomfield, BLOOMFIELD at hotmail.com. So it's Hayden.Bloomfield at hotmail.com. Hello, Becky.
Hi, hello.
Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all ours. So, how are you?
Very well, very well. Hectic with 3 little ones at home during this time, but no different to anybody else.
To break the ice, can you, in 30 seconds, summarise for all our listeners who or what is Didi and Bud?
So Didi and Bud is a family sleepwear range designed by me in Kent and all made entirely in England. The concept behind it began as children's and baby sleepwear, and then it kind of just grew as the whole twinning, family matching phenomenon, sort of broke out. So I started with baby sleepwear, and now it's become family sleepwear. But for me, it's about ethical manufacturing and staying true to kind of, my values and creating a sleepwear brand that I'm proud of and that I would want to put my children and family in. To
go right back to the start, from my research, correct me if I'm wrong, so it's a case of you had children and you wanted to make sure that what the clothes you were putting them in was ethical, was safe, had morals behind it. So, or if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my son was born Bud, and that's his nickname, and he's now 7. And when he was tiny, I was quite frustrated by the clothes that I could find for him. I love an animal print, a cutesy print, as much as the next person. We bought tons of them, we had loads of them, but I wanted something a little bit different as well as that. And I also wanted things that I knew 100% where these items were made and absolutely what they were made from and what had happened to that sort of material and the process that the material had gone through to get to the end product of us, putting this on our child. So I wanted something a little bit different aesthetically, and I also wanted to just, be happy that what we were buying, particularly for him as well, he had quite sensitive skin when he was a baby, was the best that I could find, and it kind of, spiraled from there really. And then Didi was born. That's her nickname because Bud couldn't say her real name, so it's Didi and Bud. And then, and the whole concept was born, really.
In that journey where you want to start a business, you want to provide ethical clothing for your children, how did that even come up? So I'm thinking, if anyone's listening that wants to start their own clothing brand and has really got the same ethical mindset that you've got, how did you go about going, right, I'm going to start this business, I'm going to produce lovely, high-quality, ethical clothing? Where do I begin? How do you know that the suppliers you're going with are ethical? How do you know their standards? Was it a case of you walk through the factory? Was it a case of you go through loads of questions with them and to make sure they meet the criteria? Like, what is that process?
It took me a long, long time. I think one of the biggest hurdles for me was that I knew I wanted the items to be manufactured in the UK. Now, I have, nothing against manufacturing anywhere else, but for me it was really important that I could have a brilliant communication channel with this factory. I know that they are a family business, and so it took me a long time to find them. Basically, I think it's probably easier now than it was then. And so I guess I started by going through Make It British, and that's a website that is run by Kate Hills, and she's very, very passionate about British manufacturing. So she has a lot of contacts. And it was through her that I found the people that I use today. And it was a case of talking to them, putting my ideas out, understanding what they did at the time, what they were able to do, what their ethics were, who was working for them. I know that they are a family business and they support a lot of ladies in the community, and also, men and women in the community, but primarily the seamstresses are a group of women with a lot of experience. They've got over 100 years experience between them. But it was about, for me, it was knowing, if I'm buying wholesale from them, I'm, paying them for the manufacturing, where is that money going, and who is it going to support? So it was about, I found them, but I went through a lot of factories to get to them. It took me a long time. And I guess, so it was really Make It British that I sort of started with, to look at the options that were out there.
In that whole process, that whole journey, was you coming from a background of experience, or is this just a case of you jumped in the deep end and was like, right, now let's just sort of go through the mistakes and learn as I go?
Absolutely. My background is actually in banking. So I've worked in London and Hong Kong for various financial institutions. I was a client service representative, a client service, I sort of managed the relationship between the sales teams and the clients. mostly in Europe, actually, recently. So for me, I had no marketing experience, no manufacturing experience, no design experience, and it was all brand new. But for me, I think when I stepped away from that world and I had the children, I really wanted to do something that was meaningful for me. And I think that ensuring that the children were wearing ethically made, safe clothing, the whole idea of, the family getting into sleepwear that was good for them, comfortable for them, that was a big deal for me. I wasn't in a position to go into something, sort of in the medical profession or anything like that worthwhile. But for me, what I could do was ensure, I was creating a company that I was really proud of ethics wise. So yeah, I think a little bit of creativity was born when I was allowed to, or able to, step away from the sort of corporate world, and I was at home with the children. And then you realise, these are the things that I want to be able to buy and I can't find. So do you go out and make them then, I guess, and that's, I gave it a go and here we are.
Obviously having your children inspired you a lot, but was owning a business something you always wanted to do through life, or was it just a case of had a job, was in banking, and it's truly your children that were the inspiration, or how did it?
I've always wanted to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have that freedom and that creativity, and that, I think for me, work-life balance is massive. It's something I'm yet to conquer with, especially with the 3 children at home at the moment. It's a bit crazy. There's not really, I'm not the best at managing my time. It's something I'm learning to do. But having my own business is always something I've wanted to do. But the driver was really about what I was creating, and I hadn't ever found anything else that I thought I could run with or that I wanted to run with. I guess the career I was in before, there was never I never thought, I'm going to set up my own client management team or anything like that. It wasn't until I found this that I thought, this is something I can do and I can push forward with, and I can learn, a lot of the skills along the way. Don't get me wrong, there are people that come in and they create a brand and they hit the ground running and they have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and lots of PR contacts because that's what they've done or that's what they do. For me, it's been quite a slog, in all honesty, to get to, the visibility that I have now. And it's probably not necessarily the easiest route in, but it was my only route in. So
was it sort of you scaled the business as it got more popular, you could then produce more, and you scaled it as you could handle it?
Absolutely. So I started with 4 prints, 4 different patterns, and I only did children's sleep suits, so from newborn to 18 months old. And then as that was successful, I launched the pyjamas in the same 4 prints, and then I added 2 new prints, and then I increased the children's sizes, and then I added the ladies, and then a couple of years ago I added the men's pyjamas, and that was when the whole family matching pyjama thing happened, I guess, and we were riding that wave, as it were.
So in your previous experience in the world of banking, was your whole ethical mindset around, so obviously with Didi and Bud, it's hugely around the ethics and the story behind, and the almost the family behind it, whether that's in the factory or you yourself and your own family. But was that always apparent in your life? So I don't know how you'd apply it to banking, but was it always, have you always had that ethical mindset, or is it something that sort of was born out of your children again?
I'm going to be honest, I think it was much more apparent when I had the children. I think I was quite career minded when I was in finance. I spent 4 years in Hong Kong. That was very much a kind of work hard, play hard environment. I've always been super, super close to my family. I speak to my mum every single day, that sort of thing. So those ethics, that kind of fundamental has always been there. I'm incredibly close to, my dad, my brother and sister as well. But I think it was, to push forward with a family business was really when I had the children, and really, I wanted to teach them that you can do something different and you can succeed even if you don't necessarily have the platform that other people do. And it was really important to me that I did something that they can be proud of. And my phone will buzz when an order comes through and the children jump around, yay, someone's buying mummy's pajamas. And it's really kind of, and then I'll get, one of them will say, oh, can you do this print? Or, and they'll put ideas in of what they want to see. And then, Didi will moan and say, oh, you didn't do that one in a dress, mum, and I want a nightie in it. And I'm like, and it's kind of, but it's amazing that they're all really involved. So, they love it. They only wear Didi and Bud, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they've taken ownership of it as well?
They won't wear anything else. They won't sleep in any other sheets. They won't wear any other pajamas. So they are my inspiration and my biggest fans.
You got your own little creative design team there.
Yeah. Oh, and they will tell me if something isn't the right colour or the print is off or, they're not that happy. So, you need that honesty and that kind of critique, I guess.
I can imagine, like, having young children, I can just imagine the conversations are quite almost blunt. Like, if they don't like it,
they're brutal.
Yeah.
If it's wrong, it's wrong, and you know about it. So I think
yeah, I suppose it's more helpful before they develop the filter to sort of look and go, oh no, it's okay. They just don't have that at all, I can imagine.
Absolutely. Or I'll say, what about this colour? Or I'll come home with various colour charts. They're like, no. Or they'll choose something that's really far out, and I have to think, it's not necessarily always about, I'm not the only taste in the world. People have other tastes, and it's bringing in, they make me bring in those other elements, I think, which is important as well. And see it through a child's eyes. What does a child want to wear? Yes, I want more grown-up prints. I don't always want, I guess the typical classics, but they also have to love it and be excited about it as well. So, they do help. They're a big help.
So where's the balance there? Because obviously you're designing clothing for children, but you're selling to the parents. They're the ones that are buying it. So where's the balance between something a kid will want to wear and something a parent would want to buy?
So I think for me, it's about, so for example, my best-selling range is my Winter Trees range, and it's a white pyjama with a classic tree shape over it. One is dark, one is light. So the children love it because you can see it's like a wintry Christmas tree, and it's white, and it's that, yearly, that's seasonal. But at the same time, the parents, it's quite minimal, it's quite minimalist, it's quite, they look very classy, they look very, they're a fitted pyjama, the print works well with both. And I think another favourite is my London Organics. So it's a London print. There's a bit of nostalgia there for the parents. The children love it because it's London. And then I have a Paisley, and my little boy says that the Paisley reminds him of monkey vines in a jungle. So he loves it for that. But Paisley is so popular, with men and women as well. It's so that's the balance that I try to get.
In saying, like, your children having big influences and being part of the creative team as such, have you ever had to have that conversation where they've said, oh, what about this design? What about this drawing? And you've just looked and gone, there's no way, I can't possibly do that. Like, how do you have that conversation?
I think the most difficult conversation is that they'll all come up with about 5 different designs, and I'm like, whoa, I can do maybe for sort of the winter period I'll release 3 or 4, not 12. It's kind of, that's really the thing, and it's which ones do you put up there? I think that's probably the most difficult.
Going back to when you said about like having a great relationship with your family, your mum, your dad. So how did they respond to you coming up with this idea? Because I suppose in hearing a lot of people's stories and how they began, you parents can either be sort of thinking you're crazy and be like, no, stay safe. Look, you've had a great career in banking. That's what you do. That's who Becky is. Stick with that. Or is it a case of, right, you got a crazy idea, you're going to go start your own clothing brand, go for it. Like, how did your parents respond?
They are the most supportive parents I could wish for. They're amazing, absolutely amazing. And actually my mum, so I do everything from home. All the pyjamas are at home. I wrap everything, every order. Excuse me. The only person who's ever covered for me is my mum. When we've gone on a family holiday, she then has the stock at hers or a selection of, and she's able to fulfill orders for me while I'm away. Also, my mum has been known to wander around Santorini in the Paisley pyjamas to get some really nice shots with the white buildings and the blue sky, because the colour offset is just phenomenal. So similarly, my nan buys the PJs for herself and her friends. It's a real, they're all... all my nieces and nephews all wear Didi and Bud, as do my brother and sister, and and actually my brother and his wife are in most of the photo shoots as well. So it's a real family kind of. Everybody's on board with it. Everybody's really supportive. I'm really lucky.
So on the topic of all the photos, so in going through your Instagram, there are some really nice shots. So all the photos there, are they all sort of your family and extended family, or is there where have all those photos come from? Is it family or fans?
It's a real mix. A lot of them are customer photos. So a lot of the time, people will put their photos on Instagram of the pajamas and they'll tag me in it. I will then say to them, that's amazing, please may I share it? And I ask for permission. And if I get the permission, then I'm able to share it on my social media and potentially on my newsletter as well. So only ever with permission. But I'm, blown away by the clients that I have. Some of them have spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds with me, and I know every time I release a new collection, I know they'll be the first there buying the new collection for the whole family, and then they buy the pajamas as the children move up sizes. They then buy the next size, and then I'll get things like in a couple of years' time, I'll get a picture of a print maybe that I don't do anymore, saying I bought these 2 years ago and now the younger siblings in them, and that to me, that buy once, we buy well, you only have to buy it once is really important as well. And that is shown by a lot of the pictures. There are a lot of hand-me-down Didi and Buds out there.
I was to say, that has got to really say a lot for your product, because just thinking when I was like that sort of age, clothes did not last 5 minutes, let alone could I imagine them actually being passed down. I don't think I've ever had anything that I've actually been able to pass down to someone, because I destroy everything.
Well, all mine are in hand-me-downs, and I think it's important to understand, for people to realise that there is a certain price point that comes with the pyjamas because of the material that's used and because of the way it's manufactured and because it's a small business. Sometimes there will only be a couple of hundred of these made per print. There won't be thousands of them, so the manufacturing prices are a lot higher due to the smaller quantities and the fact that it is made in the UK. The minimum wage or the for example, over here is a lot less, a lot more than it would be in somewhere else that these pajamas could be made. And, we're not talking about minimum wage, and it's just an example, but, the costs to have it made here are a lot higher. Also, the cotton is organic or OEKO, and it's all natural. There are no, there's no chemical in there. It's not, so you have to wash it at 30, but if you look after the garments well, they'll in turn look after you well. So it's about understanding what you're buying.
Well, do you see consumers changing their buying habits to go away from buying stuff cheap and actually spending a bit more money for things that they know are going to last a bit more?
Absolutely. And I think now, people are keen to buy from, a manufacturing chain that they're able to recognise and they're able to understand as well. But absolutely, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a place in the market for all these different, things that are made in abroad, things that are made here. There's a place for all of it. But I think for the most part, there is a massive shift in the market from people wanting to buy small, but also wanting to know, what they're buying and what those products mean and do.
Have you ever found it to be a setback? So, as you said, like manufacturing in the UK and meeting that criteria in terms of obviously wages being a lot higher, materials being more expensive. So has that been a setback for you at all in terms of, obviously for you, that must have meant a lot more upfront capital to be able to afford that before you've even sold anything?
Absolutely. And sometimes, you can launch a collection and you need to get, you need to reach the right customer base, and that's not always that easy. Not everybody is in a position, to buy the products that are made in the UK. That's just, it's a simple fact, isn't it? It's not that easy for everybody, and especially in a time like now. It does present some hurdles, but I think for me, overwhelmingly, I believe in the product. I have a wonderful customer base, and people do tend to reorder with me. So once they've ordered once, they do tend to stay on. So it's then a case of just making sure, I keep them up to date, with what's going on. Now it's difficult because obviously so many people are in a difficult position at the moment. So there's no underestimating what impact this is going to have in this time. Also, I have some collections on hold at the moment, which is hard because then I'm not presenting anything new. So it's a difficult point at the moment, but overwhelmingly, because there is that mindset shift, it's, it is good.
On the topic of current times, you said obviously new collections being on hold, which I take it means we can't get any spoilers of what's coming out, but have you still do you keep stock so you're still able to actually, so people can people still go and buy Didi and Bud right now?
Yeah, people can buy Didi and Bud right now. I've still got 3 or 4 collections live at the moment, and I've got extra sort of baby sleep suits because, you know, people are still having babies. People still want to buy the organic, the OEKO for a new baby. You know, so that's something that I do have at the moment. What I don't have is my brand new prints that people haven't seen yet. They're all a big, you know, nobody's seen those yet. They were supposed to be out by now. They're probably not going to be out for another couple of months. And then that presents problems in that, you know, I had designed a new short set of pyjamas, as in the overall style of them. That now needs to change. And then also, do I make some colour changes because of the season that it will be available in? So, yeah, but there are, you know, fundamentally my core collections, things like my London Organics, my Super Me, which is an aqua pyjama, which works really well colour-wise for this time of year, they're all still available.
Going back to the start, so when you come up with your designs and you're printing everything and it's going released, tell us about that sort of feeling. So weighing up the balance between getting everything made, making sure you've got the stock, and then sort of pushing the button, making sure it's all up online. What was that feeling of? So how did you know you was going to sell anything, or did you not know, or how did that work?
I guess in a way, you know, to be brutally honest, you don't know. But I think I had done a lot of prep. I'd set up so primarily I market on Instagram. I'm involved in a very, you know, supportive community on Instagram, and I find that a fantastic tool. I put up a lot of, I guess, teasers, you know, letting people know what was coming, and I already, you know, had built up a little bit of a community before I launched. I'll never forget the night we launched. It was very busy, you know, you're sort of on the kitchen table wrapping everything and, you know, to get the orders out for the very next day. And it was really, really exciting, quite overwhelming, and a big relief that, you know, that the stock started flying out. So, yeah, but it is an unknown. It is a gamble, you know. Quintessentially English designs aren't everyone's cup of tea, but that's kind of the charm as well. That's okay. So.
But you mentioned there about a supportive community within, like, on Instagram. So is that in terms of other brands that you're communicating with and sort of giving each other a bit of a boost and like a morale support, that sort of thing? Or what do you mean by a supportive community?
So everything. So I have a network of other small businesses who do a variety, but primarily children's wear, I guess, family wear, you know, some I do kind of lady styles, homewares, you know, nursery styling, that sort of thing. I have a big network of other small businesses, and we always support one another, share new products, share any offers, share any, you know, any news, anything for the brand really. But also there's a really big sort of, I guess, mum community on there, you would say. And I think there's a real understanding that there is a family behind this brand. Particularly now, I'm homeschooling too. I have a 2-year-old as well who needs entertaining at the moment. So, you know, perhaps my replies to emails aren't what they would be in a normal, you know, kind of working day. They're a little bit longer, and my reply to messages on Instagram and things like that are a little bit slower, haphazard maybe, because, you know, I do have a family here, and they're all right here right now. So it's tricky, but that support network is wonderful for bouncing off ideas, sharing experiences, you know, and it's also just friends that you've made on there as well, people that you kind of, you know, you gravitate towards because of their style perhaps, or the stories that they're sharing on Instagram. It's, you know, it is a real community app I find on there.
Within that community, so is there not an idea, there's no sort of competition as such where you're sort of looking and going, oh, you're selling the same thing I'm selling, like, is there no sort of hostility there?
Question, and I would answer that by saying yes, there is competition on there, and you will always inevitably in anything, I think, find brands that are less likely to want to collaborate or you know, network if they do something similar. In my mind, there is nothing more successful than other brands launching similar products with similar ethics and growing that market. So, and you know, if they're creating awareness for something that is ethically made, it's made from 100% cotton, and all the goodness that brand is doing, it opens the door for other brands as well. And I think, you know, ultimately for me, it's about reducing, you know, the polluted waters from the mass manufacturing and things like that. It's about making sure that we are promoting ethical manufacturing. And if there's another brand that's doing that, then I'm more than happy to work with them. Obviously, it's difficult because they might take a customer, they might prefer their print. That's going to happen in anything. And I think it would just, I would be, you know, it would be, it's quite short-sighted of me not to be involved in the overall network and you know, promote the business in that sense.
I think that's an incredible mindset to have, though, to sort of be willing to open the door and even have that conversation. And because for all you know, I suppose you don't really know. Someone could be getting in touch with you. It's a very similar brand because they just want to suck as much information out and see how they can use that to their advantage. But I think approaching it with positivity and having that mindset is very key, and it's, well, very benevolent, I suppose, in terms of, and it fits all your ethics, all your values. So I think that is really great and commemorable to know that you actually do have that mentality towards working with brands, even if they are sort of competition as such. But even in my own business, I find having some of my best referrers are competition as such. So we do exactly the same thing, provide the same service, but we still, in having those conversations, we have the same problems, and just having those people to sort of bump ideas, as you alluded, just being able to discuss your ideas and your problems, work them out together. It's so powerful to have.
They're the ones that will understand as well, like you say, you have the same difficulties, and I have, I've had a couple, I'm going to be massively honest and say, I've had a couple of comments on my Instagram saying, gosh, how much are they? They're too expensive, and, you could probably get the same elsewhere for a lot less, and that's okay. I used to find that really hurtful and really upsetting, but the price point is because that's how much it costs to be made, and there's only me behind the business, and I do everything here, and I think it's, they are worth the money, and it's okay. Other brands will understand that as well, and I think it also it gives me the confidence to know that actually, I'm not overcharging. I think when I first started out, it worried me a little bit, and then I would do all these offers and that, and then you go, but then I've not made any money on that, and it's not a hobby, it's a business at the end of the day, and it has to work towards supporting my family. But I think you can grow, you can get confidence from those other brands because they're using the same price point and the same structure, because that's how much it costs to be made, and that's how expensive the material is, and that that's what it is. It's not so that's a really good thing.
No, I think that's really important as well, because I had the same thing in starting out, and as you said, people messaging in or talking to you and saying, no, it's far too expensive, you've got no idea what you're doing, but then, and it can really bother you. But on that note, so from the moment you started, obviously that's going to be a big challenge to overcome, a big setback, but what else have you found has been some of the toughest things to deal with I suppose in business in general, but also in your values and your ethics? What have been the biggest challenges in that?
I think it's always difficult when you do ladies wear. So I started off doing 2 sizes of a pyjama, for example, a small, medium and a medium large. And then I had a couple of comments by people saying, you're not catering for a plus size lady. And I was mortified by this. I want to cater for everybody but fundamentally, as a very small business, I only have a certain amount of capital to put into these designs, and I could only produce 2 sizes. So I had to go with the 2 sizes that I thought would sell the best, I think. But then as I've developed, then I've added in new sizes, and that's been wonderful. But it's been really hard between the emotional, I just can't do something, and how that might look to the outside world, because not everybody understands how it works. Not everybody understands that there isn't a massive pot of money to put into this. I can only put in what I make from it. So, and it's a constant wheel of a collection going, well, brilliant, so I can start on the new collection and that sort of thing. And also I'll get people saying, oh, you don't do this in this child's size, and it's like, but you have, for me, I have to work up to being able to do that. So that's been really hard. The last thing I would ever want to do ever is offend anybody, but you also can't please everybody. And then somebody will email and say, oh, the fit was not right for me, and that's okay, because we're all different. There is no shop in the world that everybody that's a certain size goes in and buys everything in that size and it fits them. Not taking that personally and realizing that you're never going to please everybody is a big thing to overcome, I think.
So in that situation where I suppose the biggest barrier is always the capital, is, as you said, like wanting to be able to cater for everybody, but you can't just invest all the money and have all the sizes. So in that challenge, how do you deal with it when someone comes to you and says, like, oh, I'm offended, like I'm a plus size lady, like why aren't you catering to me? So how do you respond to that to sort of settle the situation?
I will always try and be open and honest. That I have nothing. That's all I can do, I think. But then always let people know that I'm looking to to expand and be able to add the sizes in. It's similarly like the small medium are sort of an 8 to 10. I have ladies that are a 4 to 6, and they're saying you don't cater for me, and I it's both ends of the spectrum. It's and I think, but for me, it's about being open and honest and saying, look, I absolutely want to cater for everybody. I'm getting there. Bear with me. Please stick around. Please, look for the updates, because ultimately that's what I want to be able to do, is cater for everybody. And yeah, I guess it's just trying to give a little bit of understanding and insight into behind the scenes and, what's going on and what the limitations of a small business like mine are.
How do you find people respond to that when you actually, because obviously to anyone that doesn't know a business or has never experienced business doesn't really understand the challenges and setbacks. So have you found that once you actually explain it, after someone's expressed their disheartenedness around not being catered for, have you found that they've been understanding, or have you still found people to be like, no, that's just an excuse? Like, how do people respond?
Generally, people are pretty good. And I think particularly when they realise there's just me, there isn't anybody else, there isn't a team of people. And I think ultimately sometimes people will email me and they'll say, for example, can you put me through to your marketing department? And I'm like, and they'll say, can you put me through to sales? And I'm like, and all these different departments and that. And I think when they realise that it's just me, then the understanding is there a lot sooner. Like I say, you're never going to please everybody. You're always going to have people that aren't satisfied with the response. But I think for the most part, 99% people, they get it and they understand. And it's, it's about that little bit of transparency.
On that note, though, when you said about people ringing up and saying, "Oh, can you put me through to sales? Can you put me through to marketing?" Do you get the feeling, like I kind of get this in my business, when people ask that question, I think, "Oh, I must come across so professional. I must come across like such an established company for you to ask that." Do you get that sort of feeling?
Yeah, I do. And then I also, there's part of me that says, somebody will phone and say, "Oh, can you put me through to marketing?" And I'm really tempted to put Didi on the phone and say, "Yeah, here's my head of marketing," and that there is that kind of, that element to it as well. I haven't done it yet, but I've been pretty close. But yeah, it's about wearing all the different hats, isn't it? And again, if you're doing all those different tasks, even if I'd come into this as a PR guru, I wouldn't have known the design element necessarily. Some people would, but you wouldn't have known all those hats. And then you've got the finance side, and then you've got so anybody starting out is going to have a learning curve. And
yeah, I'm sure you've sort of come on this journey and realised the amount of hats you actually have to wear is far more than you could ever imagine.
And that's after the 3 children and the job that is overwhelmingly kind of my priority in my day to day.
So what's the biggest lesson you think you've learned that you didn't know before you started your own business?
You can't just wing it, I think, probably. I think, there's a lot of things in life that we all wing a little bit at the moment, and you can wing it to a certain extent. I certainly wing it with homeschooling, hands up. With a business, you need the planning, you need you need somebody there as well sometimes to bounce ideas off of. You have to have strategies in place. You can't just wing it with something as important as this. You do need to put the time into it. And also the other big thing for me, I think, is marketing. Sometimes I've been super busy, I've worked really hard on the marketing, and then I've got a load of orders in. I then spend my time on those orders and I'm not keeping up with the marketing. So once those orders are done, there's nothing out the other side. It's realizing you've got to keep this wheel going, and it's understanding how you can do both, because you can't always do everything, but you have to keep the wheels in motion even when you're really busy with the orders and the work you've got in front of you, to understand that actually when those are done, you need the next lot to keep you going and be sustainable. So that's been a big learning curve for me as well.
On the topic of like trying to find the right balance between, especially now where you said you're homeschooling, you're running a business, you've got to be keeping up with the marketing, keeping up with the orders going out. For you, for Didi and Bud in the future, do you want to keep it as just you and family support, or do you want to look at employing staff and taking on a team, expanding?
It's a really good question, and I've thought about this a lot, and I think I've had different stages of this where I've thought, I want to be the next white company, but a UK made white company and that sort of thing. And then I go, but does it take away from what the brand is to know that I'm originally at my kitchen table, and then I'm in the spare room, which is an office, wrapping the orders, and I'm putting every single hand tag on, and I'm steaming all the garments before they go out, and I write every single hand note, does that change who the company is? And I think maybe it does, but obviously if you want it to get to a certain level where it brings in a certain amount of income, then it would have to be scaled, of course. How I do that, in my eyes, I would like to be able to bring in some staff on a flexible arrangement. So whether it's parents, whether it's carers, whether it's anybody that needs a flexible working environment, I would like to be able to provide that. And I think if we had a premises where I could do that and still be very involved, as involved as I am now, but also, maybe have some help with some of the jobs would be amazing, as the business grows. Do I want to farm it out somewhere else? No, not at the moment. Maybe ask me again in a couple of years. But, I think for me, I would like it to be a supportive brand that can also support, some other people and give them flexibility and income, doing something they enjoy, promoting a brand that's, that's ethical, conscious, and, is aware.
On that note, have you, through your social media or any other emails, Insta, have you had people come to you wanting to work for the company?
Yeah, I get a lot of people send me CVs, and I also get a lot of people in university asking to come and do work experience, which I hadn't really thought of until I started receiving those. I also get a lot of university students send me questionnaires and asking me all about, the business and that sort of thing. But yeah, I do. Certainly at the moment, I'm not looking to bring anybody in, but I have plans in the future to be able to when the current world situation that we're in, until we know how that's going to pan out, and I know, when I can start manufacturing again. And, I have 3 amazing prints that I'm so excited about that I can't do anything with at the moment. And as soon as I know when I can release those, and, then I'd like to bring some people in, it's difficult because I could really do with some help with the social media, but then I'm so proud of the social media element that I've built up and learnt myself. And it's nice that when people contact Didi and Bud, it is me that they're talking to. It's not, it's not somebody that's doing 100 different social media accounts. It's me. So, it's hard to let go, but I think ultimately something I'm going to have to learn to do. But positively would be to help support another, somebody else who needs that, outlet.
So you mentioned obviously in growing the business and expanding will be down to the demand, to meet the demand, but also, as you said, in expanding it's more money. But with that idea, is money a driver for you to make more money? Is that a desire, something you want from it?
Yeah, ultimately I want it to be able to support the family more. I want the children to see that working hard on something that you believe in can mean that you are able to put money into certain things, and whether it means that, we're able to have certain trips because as a family to explore different places, or whether we're able to, put it in, invest it in something else, or, they're able to do more clubs or whatever that might be. Ultimately, yes. But I think maybe I should be more driven by that than I am. I'm very proud of what the brand is and what the brand does, and I love sending out orders, and I'm honoured when people buy their newborn sleep suits from me, and I know, and then I get a hospital picture and there's a newborn baby and they're wearing Didi and Bud, and that just blows my mind that somebody's chosen, my outfit for their baby. And so I think, for me, a learning curve is to be more, driven by the financial elements of it. Maybe that will come, more later down the line, but at the moment it's, a lot of it is just that, I love it. I love the brand.
How do you bring your company's beliefs and values into your marketing?
Think probably by just being, by trying to put some of the family into it. I think, I think it's important that, the styling is quite minimalist. There's not a lot of, there's not a lot around the styling. It's all quite basic. I use a lot of eucalyptus, for example, for, if I'm doing flat lays of the products, and they're very, the minimalist styling. And I think, any companies that I use as well, they're also in a similar position or they have similar ethics, you know, or I think as well it's about, you know, I think the prints kind of speak for themselves as well. They're not loud and kind of, you know, they're quite they, you know, can be a little bit understated at times, I think, maybe, and I think, you know, that it does come through in the garments themselves.
No, I think Didi and Bud, what you've been able to create is phenomenal, and like you can really see your passion behind it, and like you've talked so much about the ethics and how that really is the core foundation for you. So in growing that, and obviously there's so many challenges in business that you can foresee, you can't foresee, and many that you can never envision coming. But in that journey, have you ever had to compromise on those values? Has there ever been a point where it's like we've all got to make payroll, we've all got to pay the bills? Have you ever had to sort of, I suppose, for the greater good, sort of turn an eye and compromise?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I've got a compromise in that I had started, you know, when all the information about plastics came in, I stopped using plastic mailers and I went to eco mailers. Right now, getting hold of those eco mailers is really difficult. So now I've kind of gone back to a supply of papery mailers, but they've got like a lining in them, and that's difficult for me because it's a bit of a backward step in that sense. But also, you know, people want their orders to go out at the same time. So it's, you know, it's a balance. And it's at the moment I'm doing all I can to get hold of those eco mailers again that I was so pleased to be using, you know, to make sure that I can fulfill that element of the business again. But also there are additional costs that come with using things like that. So it's a real balance of, you know, of getting it right and making sure that it's not going to put me in trouble if I do too many things that are more expensive. And, you know, so there are compromises all the time, and especially now this is a real learning curve for all of us, isn't it, in business? So yeah, definitely now.
So when you mentioned like the eco like those deliveries, so what is it all pretty much down to the global pandemic, and that's they're having to sort of limit the deliveries they make? So then
yeah, and it's the supply chain is, you know, many supply chains have been affected. And I think it's, you know, the eco mailers are relatively new on the market. They're, you know, having them made when you've not necessarily able to do social distancing in the factory where they're made, or the, you know, that's hard. And also, you know, you've got there's a lot of mixed messages, isn't there, at the moment on what deliveries should and shouldn't be taking place. Is that, you know, is that an essential delivery? Probably not.
When you say that, do you almost feel guilt then around sending your orders? Where you said about is this an essential delivery, then do you find you've almost got like a moral battle where you think I'm sending these clothes out, but am I stopping something else going out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had a little bit of a break when it all was at the, you know, sort of at the peak. But now I've devised, you know, I'm using different ways. So I'm not going into the post office and queuing to send my orders. I'm doing everything online and clicking and dropping it. So there's no contact there. And I think for me, you know, the pajamas are here. I'm following all guidelines when I'm wrapping the pajamas. I'm doing everything I can from my side. And I know, you know, 100% that until everything's wrapped, it's been done to the best of our ability to do that. And also, you know, I'm then dropping it into the post box. It's not going, you know, there's no contact with the post office anymore. Orders are taking a little bit longer. But I think, you know, whilst the, you know, but then you also have to look at it in that, you know, these companies also need to be running still. So they still need the business as well. You know, so if everybody stops doing everything, then all the chains are affected. And I think, you know, it's important to still support the, you know, the businesses that you can in this time, but obviously being mindful and conscious of what you're doing and what's necessary and what's not.
And people still need clothes.
Yeah, well, yeah, and actually, you know, pajamas and casual wear have been, you know, yeah, people need to be comfortable when they're cooped up for, you know, long periods of time. So, yeah.
So we've talked a bit about how if you expand, if you grow, and with that in mind, so how do you see Didi and Bud impacting further? So what is the future for Didi and Bud, and how else do you want to have a positive impact into whether it's your clients, the environment?
I would like to be able to do a donation-based stream as well, where we support various charities, maybe for, you know, a certain period of time, and a percentage of profits were going to various charities. At the moment, I'm not supporting is the wrong word. At the moment, there's 20% of the sales from one of my prints is going towards a fund for a local boy who's doing some fundraising for his cancer treatment, which is, you know, it's a difficult thing to process emotionally, but, you know, it's a little something that I can do in this time. And, you know, if I can't raise much money for him because he needs a lot of money, what I can do is help to share his story on social media and that sort of thing. So I'm, you know, as much behind him as I can be and his family at the moment, and I'm doing what I can to share awareness of, you know, raise awareness of his story. So, you know, that for me is you know, positive impact is the wrong word. It's you know, but it's something I can do to feel like, you know, that some good is coming out of, you know, that print being sold, I think, and the social media coverage that I do have. I think for me, it's about doing more of that. But I think as well, you know, bring on employees that are able to have, you know, a working environment that is, you know, is great for them. You know, I'm all about, you know, working together and understanding each other and how we should work in a, you know, a good environment together anyway. And if I can grow a business that means, you know, you can have people on board and support them and their families, then amazing, you know.
When you mentioned like the print where the 20% of the sales goes towards supporting this child, how did that come about? Did you have the idea, or did the child come to you? What was the story there?
The family contacted me as a local business. He's a local little boy to me. And you know, it's really hard, obviously, as a mum to three myself. There's not much I can do. I don't have a big pot of money to help charities or help, you know, I get involved in community things, in fundraising things, in raffles and that. I donate a lot of pyjamas throughout the year to various initiatives and that where I can. But I think for me, this particular little boy is local to me, and I know that the situation at the moment has had a real detrimental effect on his fundraising. And I think even if I don't raise that much money, what I can do is, you know, like I say, share his story. And so they came to me just to share the story, and I just thought, you know, there was a little bit more I could do. So hopefully we'll raise a bit of money for him as well.
One thing I always want to end on is on the topic of benevolent business and making the world a better place by owning our businesses and growing them. What is one thing that occurs within humanity right now that you can see or hope that one day will be abolished?
Amazing question. There's probably a few things. I think, gosh, what a great question. I think, do you know what? I'm going to go with an element of mental health here, and I'm going to say that I think that people's beliefs in themselves and what they can achieve and how valuable they are as a person to society and how valuable they can be is something that you know, I don't think enough people believe in themselves. I don't think that at the moment we're in a society where we work together and we promote people and make them feel worthy enough. I think there are so many challenges at the moment, and we've become so concerned about possessions and all, you know, social media. It has a really bad negative effect in the one hand where, you know, you sort of think, you know, there's that classic, you know, was she born with it or is it an Instagram filter? You know, it's not real life. And I think so much of it isn't, you know, and I think being a brand like this, it's important to show the real life behind, you know, those squares. And I think, you know, I would love that people feel more equal and more confident in their own skin and in their own abilities. And I think, you know, sort of putting one another down, you know, I'd love that was abolished and everybody was more supportive, regardless of, you know, all the differences that we all have.
Well, that's a great answer. I love that answer. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Great to hear your story. And I'm just going to end on one note. Please make an advert of you taking a call and putting Diddy through as the marketing department. I think that would be an amazing advert.
Yeah, and my youngest is 2 and she would probably just sing Frozen 2 down the phone, so perhaps that's a good one to do as well.
That's even better.
When I say sing, I mean scream, but yeah, you know, she's don't tell her I said that. She's gonna be in the theatre one day, I'm sure.
I can see a social media viral hit in the making there.
Well, they've been practicing the Macarena, and I've threatened that I might put them in matching pyjamas and get them to record the Macarena on for social media. So we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, I look forward to it. Brilliant. Well, again, thank you, Becky, for coming on. It's
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So there we have it. There's episode 1 finished with Becky Hodges. You may have noticed there that throughout our conversation we mentioned parts of lockdown. So yes, that was filmed during lockdown number 1.
Yeah, it was quite a few months ago. That was a really good conversation, though. It's good to listen back to now. So what was your favourite part?
My favourite part, I'd definitely say, in hearing Becky talk about being a business owner with the challenges of being a mum as well. So talking about how it's all around family life and her business is just part of that. It's just an amalgam of just chaos and fun and energy, but the kids are all part of the business as well. So there really is that strong fusion between them. It's not a case of she's like, right, okay, 7 o'clock I wake up the kids and I'm mum, but then when I get them to school, 9 o'clock I'm business lady. And it's all in one. That's the great thing about it. It's all true. It's all herself, and the kids are part of the inspiration. The kids come up with the ideas themselves, and it's just this whole elation of just excitement, and that's what I think is really brilliant.
You know what that reminds me of? It's a weird tangent, but I don't know if you saw them or you heard of them, the Spy Kids movies.
No.
Remember those? Oh, no. They're old movies, and they're directed by Robert Rodriguez, who normally does like adult films like Desperado or From Dusk Till Dawn, like quite violent action movies.
Yeah. And
so the idea was his kids wrote those movies and then he directed them. And so if you're an adult watching those films, you might be like, what is going on? I have no idea what's happening. This is just absolutely crazy, because it comes from a kid's mind.
Yeah.
And so it appeals to other kids. So I suppose why it reminded me of that is that her kids help her design the clothes as well. So they're going to appeal to the other kids of that age. I just thought that was quite interesting.
And it gives it the unique touch to it, and it gives it a really personal touch as well. And I think she's doing a phenomenal job there. Like the way she's built the business, and like with her Instagram, for example, like 40,000 or more, well, over 40,000 followers as part of that brand. So she's really built this strong brand, and it's got that culture there. And it's just, that's how you build the followers, because she really has created something there where there is that personality, there is that real family essence, and that you can see through the content. It's just, in terms of the buyers, the consumers she has for her products, they are families, and that's just displayed all the way through her content. So definitely go check out her Instagram, because it is really phenomenal to see. So there we have it. There's episode 1 of the podcast with Becky Hodges there. Really hope you enjoyed it, but please let us know all your thoughts and feelings and give us as much feedback as possible. You can find links to our socials in the description of each podcast episode. But please, also, if you have any feedback at all, good, bad, ugly, then you can reach out to me personally at hayden.bloomfield@hotmail.com. Until next time, thank you.
See you next week.